นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ Blessings, good evening. The weather here in the mountains is cold and damp, so just right for giving people like myself a cough. So forgive me if I cough as I talk. When I used to live in Thailand and learn meditation with various forest ajahns, a very commonly used phrase in the Thai language for describing what you're doing as you meditate is to develop a sense of satisfaction or contentment with your meditation object. Meaning to enjoy or find pleasure with your meditation object. It's a very important kind of principle if you're going to do something like meditation, which involves sitting still or either walking back and forth or sitting still for periods of time. It's a very subtle activity. It's not like any form of entertainment or sensual activity, not even like work, which might require you to think and do things. It's a very subtle kind of experience. Even the effort to train in meditation it's internal. You're working with your own mind. You're not having to move around and do a lot of different things. You're not talking to anyone. You're not using technology. You're not doing all the sort of things we're normally doing in daily life. You're developing internal qualities such as effort, patience, mindfulness, and so on. So sooner or later you've got to get some enjoyment out of it, otherwise you probably won't keep doing it. And the word in Thai, pojai, content, satisfied with the object. So if you're practicing mindfulness of breathing, as we were just now, you're putting your attention on the breath as an object of mind, something you know, the feeling, the sensation of the breath. And as you do that, you're allowing your mind to settle down and let go of everything else. And at some point, if you're doing this successfully enough, well enough, your mind actually starts to enjoy and be content to stay with that object. Probably one of the immediate dangers is that it's easy to fall asleep because we associate that feeling of relaxed contentment with how you feel just prior to falling asleep at night. You're setting down the burdens of your physical body, any pain, feelings of tiredness, discomfort and so on. And then the burdens of your mind, any worries, anxieties, doubts, problems, issues that have been bothering you. You're setting everything down, and it reminds us of like when we're falling asleep at night. But of course it's not falling asleep. If you're doing it successfully, the aim is to maintain awareness, mindfulness with the in and out breath. And you're getting to know the breath. That takes repeated effort, so the instruction, the advice is practice regularly, ideally every day, ideally maybe many times a day, but at least once a day. If you're living in the lay life and your life is quite busy, you have family, work, other things going on. But you need to be developing this sense of finding satisfaction in what you're doing, to be happy with what you're doing. Partly that's on an intellectual level as well, just understanding the benefits of training your mind in this way, why it's good, maybe listening to teachers who tell you why it's good for them and what benefits you'll get, the benefits of a peaceful mind, the health benefits, good, improves your physical health, improves your mental health, helps you to manage emotions, what we call taming your mind. You're learning many things, and of course you're gaining the possibility to develop insight, understanding that can really free your mind from a lot of stress and suffering. And there's all kinds of benefits, and you can remind yourself of that. But even that's not enough, just to know the theory, know the method, remember the teachings. In the beginning that's a start, but you also have to actually have a tangible experience of peace, contentment, happiness as you do it, sooner or later. It may take a bit of time, and that's why you need patience, but sooner or later as you do this, your mind has to begin to enjoy it and find some real good feeling from the meditation you do. Otherwise you'll probably give up sooner or later. And even if you only experience this peace once, you tend not to forget that, and that can lead you on even if you're not peaceful every time you meditate, and that's almost certainly going to happen. You'll have the days when you find your mind settles down and the days when it doesn't settle down. At least you've got the memory of that time when your mind was very content just to watch or know the breath going in, breath going out, and not seeking anything else at that time. One teacher I live with, he actually used to say it's a bit like falling in love. You're falling in love with the breath rather than another person. So it's a very kind of safe, relatively danger-free kind of falling in love. Where's that feeling of just being totally satisfied and content to be with this object of mind, the breath. Just as if you fall in love with a person, you're very content to be with that person. Especially in the initial stages when you first fall in love, if you have that experience, anytime you're with the person you love, it takes away your stress, your worries, your problems. You feel on top of the world. You're willing to put up with all kinds of other difficulties, painful feelings, stresses, and so on, because you have this thing that is totally satisfying and brings you a sense of deep contentment. So there's a certain similarity, but very quickly, probably that similarity is dropped. As you get into breath meditation, as you get into the breath meditation, and it takes you to ever more subtle levels of experience. The body settles down, and so even physical changes can take place. Your metabolism can change. You might notice even the heart rate slows a little bit. The rate of your breath slows as you get into observing, knowing the breath. You might find, when you begin, your breath may be quite fast, especially if you've been doing other activities before you breathe, do the breathing meditation. But as you get into it and do it more, you might find your breath becomes slower, more relaxed. The actual type of breathing also becomes more subtle. And body itself may, as you're sitting still, become more relaxed. And then, of course, the mind also changes over time as you're practicing breathing meditation. And maybe in the beginning, when you sit down, you'll notice, you've got all this stuff coming into your mind from what you were doing previously during the day. Immediate thoughts and memories arising about what you've been doing, who you've been talking to, activities you've been doing, things that happen, good and bad, that made some impression on you earlier in the day. Well, they'll come up. But as you keep practicing through a session of meditation, well, that may change and the memories drop away. Maybe stuff from kind of further away in your life, meaning older memories that are more significant or made a bigger impression, will come up again, or thoughts about what's going to happen in the future, particular worries or problems in your life that you're not normally thinking about, but as your mind settles down and drops the more immediate memories and thoughts about kind of ordinary business, then these bigger problems start to come back in. But if you keep going, maybe even these memories, emotions, things that seem more significant may also drop away. And eventually this sense of contentment or satisfaction just with the breath itself, the simple feeling, sensation of breath moving in, breath moving out, becomes more and more prominent, and you're less and less drawn into thinking about other things. If you experience that, then the mind is, we say, content, satisfied with the breath. And you can explore the breath. In the breath itself, just one breath in, from beginning to the middle to the end, becomes much more absorbing to the mind, and you can know it from moment to moment. In the beginning, if you've got a lot of thoughts and memories popping into your mind, you'll barely notice the movement of the breath. Because the breath is very subtle, and that's one of the problems, one of the obstacles. We find that it's so subtle, it's very difficult to pick up on the breath, especially if you've been very busy or your mind has been very active previously to the meditation. Some people just never settle down, never find the breath during the course of their meditation. But if you stick with it, you're patient enough and you keep up the effort, maybe your mind really gets to focus on the in-breath, the out-breath, and gets to know the breath. Like I was saying, maybe it's almost like you might become very calm, have this sense of peace arising, physical and mental, so a bit like falling in love, being totally happy with that experience, and all your other troubles and problems disappear temporarily. And that is satisfying to the mind, and so it keeps you going. You may feel tired physically, you may have some pain in your body, different unpleasant sensations, but you're willing to put up with them because there's this sense of satisfaction, happiness to keep going. The mind is stilling, and you can see that, you know that, you feel that. It's not just a thought, it's an actual feeling, physical and mental sense of well-being arising. And for anyone who meditates regularly, well, that's one of the things that sustains them. If not every time they meditate, at least sometimes you experience that, and then you'll be willing to put up with the periods where you're not particularly peaceful and your mind is all over the place or full of some kind of negative emotion that you might call suffering. You're willing to put up with that because you know there's a chance and opportunity to abandon that, let it go for something more subtle that brings you more happiness. And also, when you experience the happiness of the mind that is just with the breath as an object, and maybe that feeling of happiness fills the whole body, so you have a very positive experience. Your whole body is filled with a good energy, feeling of lightness, brightness, happiness. That also gives you a chance to come back and look at your experience from a place of detached awareness, or we say equanimity. The quality of equanimity, just knowing in a very even way without getting involved in what you're knowing. So seeing objects or phenomena, seeing the mind, the body as phenomena becomes possible because the mind is calm, still, happy. Body is still, mind is still. This is one of the benefits of samadhi. However brief, however fleeting, it gives you the chance to really objectify your experience and then reflect on it, look at it in a new light without attachment. To see thoughts as thoughts, arising, passing away, memories as memories, feelings, physical feelings, pleasure and pain, or subtle mental feelings of pleasure and pain as feelings, arising, passing away. But you also have to train in that quality of observation and investigation. So having developed this great sense of satisfaction, calm, peace with the breath, you could just continue that indefinitely maybe. And some people do, some meditators do that. But sooner or later you might realize that the causes of suffering are still there in your mind. They haven't been completely removed, they've just gone quiet. And to get to this point where you're with the breath, or you might say you've fallen in love with the breath, you're happy with the breath, there's nothing else you want, it's good, but it's not enough. You also have to train yourself to investigate. So one of the common questions meditators have is, well, what should I do? What should I investigate? What should I contemplate? How should I do it? So my teacher Ajahn Kalyano used to say, well, when you are very calm, satisfied with the breath, your mind is not easily distracted, it's not falling into likes or aversions, different moods. There's this quality of just knowing experience, but not getting lost in your experience. Then contemplate the body, turn your attention to the body, the physical body. So that means asking questions, looking at it, turning to, say, run through, say, from the top of the body down to the bottom. There's different ways you can do it, but if you start at the top, say, what is this body? This thing I call myself, this body that's sitting here, because you're fully aware that this body is here, you're aware of the breath, and you're aware of this body sitting on the cushion, if that's where you are. What is it? What is it made of, for example? That's just one way of contemplating the body. Contemplate what's it made of. It's made of different natural elements, isn't it? The Buddha even helped us. He said, well, contemplate the four primary elements: earth, or solidity, air, which is often manifests as the movement and the extensions within the body. Liquid, which manifests as like the cohesiveness of the body, as well as the liquid parts like urine or blood, but also just the way liquid, it glues things together, the cohesiveness of the liquid element. And then temperature, fire element, the heat, the coolness, the heat of the body. So if you go to the top of your head, we just pick a part of the top of the head, so the hair of the head or the skin, or you may go deeper than that, the skull, the bone, and ask yourself questions. What is that? Is it a person? Is it me, mine, myself? Do I really own this hair, this skin, this skull? If I do, then I should be able to make it how I like. Should be able to keep it without being painful. Should be able to keep my hair, not to lose my hair, not to go bald. Or if you want your hair to be a certain way, I should be able to keep it a certain way. Should be able to just keep it clean. And we do spend a lot of time cleaning it, but without having to actually go and wash hair. If it's really yours, you should be able to just say, just don't get dirty. Don't grow long, don't fall out. Don't die. Question it and contemplate it. What does it look like? What does it do over time? How solid and permanent is it? How lasting is it? Is it a person? Is it me, mine, myself? Contemplate this for each part of the body, starting from the top of the head, the hair, the skin, the bones, the flesh, the blood, going down through the body, the organs, and so on. If your mind is calm, peaceful, with its object, such as the breath, then to turn to do this is doable, because you're not going to immediately get bored with it. You're not going to immediately kind of shrink back or walk away from that practice because you're feeling calm, peaceful. There'll be a certain lightness of mind. The mind can be pliable when it's peaceful, when samadhi arises, when you're calm. You can turn your mind to do things. It will listen to you. You say, contemplate the body, it will listen to you, it will do it. Normally, when we're not meditating and we're not particularly mindful or peaceful, when you say, contemplate the body, you'll do it for about 10 seconds or 30 seconds, and your mind will just move on to something else, won't it? It jumps from object to object. It's not steady enough or peaceful enough to do this. But if you've invested some time to meditate on the breath, train it, and your mind is calmed down, settled down, is feeling peaceful, at ease, content, not bored, not sleepy, then it's a great time to ask these questions. What is this body? What's it made of? Who owns it? Is it a self? Is it me, mine, myself? How long will it last? Why does it change? Because it's constantly changing, and so on. Ask these questions and then investigate it little by little, bit by bit, piece by piece, and get really familiar with your body from the top down to the bottom, from the head of hair on your head down to your toes and your nails and everything in between. So at first your mind will just kind of rush over it, say, oh, I know that, I know the body is impermanent, not self, it's just made up of physical elements, it just is what it is. I know what it looks like, I know what it feels like. But that's all memory, it's just what you can remember about it. As your mind becomes more still, more calm, more mindful, then you're actually turning to just know these phenomena, as objects without taking them as self. So it's quite possible sometimes, if you're very peaceful already from, say, practicing mindfulness of breathing, then you go a little bit further and you become peaceful from knowing the body as impermanent, as not self. And seeing these elements as just elements, seeing the body parts, component parts as just component parts of a human body, but the sense of ownership disappears for a while. And an even more profound peace can arise, that, even more profound than just the peace of your mind merging with the breath and being very satisfied, content to be with the breath. And that will also motivate you, give you some energies to keep practicing. You realize, your view, the way you view this body, can change for the better. You have a more detached, peaceful way of looking at your own body. And the very sense of ownership, say, my body, that changes. There's the mind, and then there's the body, and there's a sense of separation. It's almost as if you're looking back at this thing we call a body. And when there's a separation and the sense of ownership fades a bit, well, it seems more like, something that, like a doll or a puppet or a robot, or whatever way you want to look at it. Something that is impersonal, that is not you. So different than before, when you just automatically assume this body was yourself. And when you take this body as self, of course, you invest a lot of time and energy in it, cleaning it, looking after it, worrying about it, trying to keep it healthy, moving it around, doing things, seeking pleasure with it, running away from pain, and so on. That whole way of behavior to do with the body, the way your mind relates to the body, changes if you investigate it in this way. And that doesn't mean to say you give up on the body and stop eating food, or stop taking medication, or stop cleaning your body when it's dirty and so on. But it just means the way you view it, the way you look at it changes. You look at it in a new light. As though it's something that's useful to you, but not that important. If we never do this kind of investigation, then we're always kind of like a slave to our desires and attachments based on this body. We're always thinking of it as a self, so we're always worried about our appearance, how other people view us, how much pleasure we have, how much pain we have. It all becomes very problematic for us and tiresome, without us realizing most of the time. Most of the time we just accept the way we think, the way we view this body. We just go along with our old way of thinking, our habits of thinking. But when you practice mindfulness of breathing, for example, and your mind becomes very still, and there's a chance to look at this body from this place of stillness, the mind that is quiet, and you get a new way of looking at it, or understanding it. If you keep contemplating impermanence, for example, it becomes just ordinary or normal to see this body as an impermanent phenomena, or set of different component parts. They're constantly interacting, changing, and expressing. Those changes are expressed with changes in feelings. So we feel pleasure when we sit down, and then after a while we feel pain because we feel we've been sitting a long time and the blood stops flowing to certain parts of your leg or whatever, or there's pressure, so you might feel some pain, or you feel tired, or you feel hungry. Then you eat food and you feel full, and then you eat, you digest your food and you feel hungry again. Normally we're just reacting with desire and attachment to the body. But if you invest in stilling the mind in meditation, in mindfulness of breathing, and then contemplate, it gives you a whole new look, a way of looking at it. This is why the Buddha had Buddhist monks just wear one kind of clothing, simple robes, one hairstyle, shaven head. He was helping us in a very direct way just to simplify our lives. As lay people, well, you may not be ready to do that, put on robes and shave your head. But still, you can learn a lot from that, can't you? As lay people, well, maybe just dress simply, whatever clothes you use, keep them fairly simple, practical, do the job, keep you warm in the winter, keep you cool in the summer, protect you from bugs, keep things modest, so you have something covering you so you don't get laughed at on the street or whatever. Just keep your clothing simple and practical. Keep your hairstyle simple and practical. Somebody was saying, the average person, probably female, but men as well, can spend an hour on their hair. I wouldn't know. I've never spent an hour on my hair in my life, and certainly not as a monk. But it can be that distracting, something as simple as hair. So if you have hair as a layperson, well, just keep a simple hairstyle. You don't have to waste too much time on it. Don't get too attached to it. Clothing, hairstyles. As you practice more, you learn how the practice of what we call sense restraint, precepts, sense restraint in lay life supports meditation just as it does in the life of a monastic, a monk or a nun. We need to practice on the outside to support the practice of stilling the mind and then contemplating the Dhamma on the inside. If you're spending all your time letting your mind go out to seeking out sense pleasures, earning money so you can have more sense pleasures, distract yourself more with the world so you don't have to think about any kind of painful, unpleasant experiences, or you don't have to notice the suffering of life, well, you can do that, especially in this day and age. There's a lot of pleasure to be had, a lot of material wealth at our disposal. But you're not really going to understand the mind that is still and free from suffering. It'll be more like just a kind of a temporary experience as long as you've got the health and the wealth to distract yourself, well, you can do it, but sooner or later it catches up with you as you get older, and then you have to deal with a mind that is not well trained. But if you've seen the value of this training, you've learned to meditate, whether you're a layperson or a monastic, well, then you can really use that as a basis for contemplation. Simplify your mind through sense restraint and then contemplate impermanence of this body. It won't last forever. It doesn't even last unchanged for one day, does it? In the course of one day, you go through many changes of posture, many aches and pains, which affect your mind. If you're not ready for it, well, how your body is can put you in a good mood, put you in a bad mood. So we have to contemplate it. Bring your mind's attention to this body, the nature of these 4 elements and the 32 parts, and bring your mind to recognize, they're impermanent. They're not self. Not to be clung to as self, because if you cling to this body, you suffer, don't you? That's the clue. That's why we contemplate the body, is to free the mind from craving and attachment that leads to suffering. Imagine if already you've built up a lot of attachment to hair, say, as a layperson. How much more attachment you're going to have to your skin. You've got your hair to attach to, you've got your skin, and then every organ of the body. Sometimes people these days we have this problem, don't we, with organ donation and donating your body to science and things. It's quite a good contemplation, I think, when you're still alive, to think about, at the end of your life, what you want done with your body. Traditionally, monks, they say, "Oh, when I die, just throw me on the cremation pile of logs and burn me up. That will be good enough." Monks tend to be fairly down to earth like that. But nowadays in the world, you have different options. So one of them is to do organ donation, and then people say, well, if I write a will or something down to say I'm going to donate my organs for transplant and so on, what does that mean when I die? Does that mean they're going to harvest the organs before I die? They keep me alive and they'll remove my kidneys and my lungs or my eyes or whatever. Already that will bring up a sense of self, won't it? Some people, it brings up a doubt. If I let them take my organs for donation, for transplant, will I somehow suffer from that? Or some people believe you remove the kidney, the heart, various organs for donation, and then the person dies, and in next life somehow their body won't be so good. There's that kind of worry, or fear. In the next life they'll be missing something. Other people say, well, don't want to do organ donation because maybe they'll be taking these organs out when I'm alive, and I don't like the sound of that. Again, the attachment is stimulated. They say, well, donate my body to science. So once I'm dead, just take it off and it can be used for research. But even before we die, just planning or thinking about what we do after we've died already brings up attachment, doesn't it? Some people, sort of discuss and even have arguments about, say, if they get cremated, where the ashes should go. Should they be buried under a nice rose bush, or should they be put into some nice wall with a plate in a plaque in a temple somewhere, or should they be thrown into the sea or onto a mountain? On and on it goes. You haven't even died yet, you haven't even been cremated, already you're filling your mind with these kind of worries and doubts, and sometimes even arguments. Scatter the ashes in the sea, no, on the mountain. On and on it goes, isn't it? You haven't even died yet, already it's a problem, already it's suffering, because of attachment. So even simply investigating your relationship between the mind and the body, what that means, coming to see the body as a impersonal phenomena through contemplation, that might be your goal, to liberate your mind from attachment. But to get to that point takes a lot of practice, a lot of effort, learning to calm the mind, bring this sense of calm, ease, peace of samadhi, and then contemplating the body and coming to terms with the fact that this body is not self, it's impermanent, it's not self. That's quite a lot of work there, quite a lot of practice to do. I would say we probably have no choice, just to keep doing it, keep contemplating, keep calming the mind and contemplating, because this is where real liberation lies. Liberation from craving and attachment. They used to say, if you can see the corpse in your body, then you're free from craving. If you truly can see the corpse, see the fact that this body is just a corpse, you won't have craving for it, because nobody craves a corpse. Once somebody dies, nobody wants their body, normally speaking. If you can see that before the person has died, you see the death before the death, then your mind lets go, doesn't it? It lets go of the love, the hate, the fascination, the identification with the body. If you can see it as a corpse while you're walking around, while other people are walking around, there's a certain freedom there. All kinds of states of suffering drop away, don't they? Who gets angry with a corpse? You don't bother. I guess in the time of the Buddha there was a king who got very angry with someone and he had them executed. Who was it? Was it Margantia who tricked the king, made him execute his beloved queen? The person who tricked him, he had them executed once he realised what they'd done, and then he had their remains ploughed into the ground. Then he got all their families members and ploughed all their remains into the ground. So I guess occasionally people are so angry they do damage corpses or plough corpses into the ground. But normally speaking, you don't do that. Once somebody becomes a corpse, they've died, that's it, isn't it? You don't want anything more to do with a corpse. Nobody wants a corpse. We burn it, we bury it, finish with it. So if you could see this body as a corpse before you die, already you're going to be feeling detached from this body. If you really did that very well, they'd call you an anagami. That's one of the ways they define an anagami, a non-returner. They don't return to this world when they die because they have no more attachment to the body. So there'll be no reason to attach to the embryo when there's conception in a mother's womb and a little embryo forms. The anagami doesn't want it. They don't want more birth. They have no more desire for the sensual pleasures of this world, having a body, having nice food, seeing nice things. They don't want that anymore. They're an anagami, a non-returner. They're reborn in a Brahma realm and reach Nibbana there. So the teachers used to say, practice until you see the corpse in this body. So you have no more doubt that this body is going to die. It has to die. That's just the nature of human bodies. It's not a good thing, it's not a bad thing, it's just the way it is. If we're still thinking, it's something I really hate, the fact that this body is a corpse, it will die. If you hate that, that's still an attachment, isn't it? The Dhamma is taking us beyond birth and death, love and hate, to a place where you just know the way things are without loving and hating. And one way to get there is, or perhaps the only way to get there, is to see the impermanent nature of this body. This body is not self, it's impermanent, not to be clung to. So there are a few thoughts or reflections on the practice of meditation, calm and insight meditation tonight. Maybe I'll leave the talk there for your reflection, and if there's any questions, we'll try to answer them afterwards.